When I was young, I'd listen to the radio, waiting for my favorite songs.
Looking back, it almost seems ideal. We were living in a small town in America, with its main street just beyond the overpass. We shopped at D. Stevens and the Del Mart for clothes, Marion and Dean's and Quality IGA for groceries, and Mr. G's for everything in between. We ate at A&W, Arctic Circle, and the Burger Box. We water skied on Gunnison Bend Reservoir and took cool walks up Oak Creek Canyon. The players played, the cheerleaders cheered, the Tridells marched, and the Dell teens spent countless hours promoting D-Spirit. These clubs and other organizations helped fill up our young lives. The drama and debate clubs, Western Writing Club, Letterman, FFA and FHA, the Model and Triangle staffs, the chorus and the band, and the Club of Many Feathers. We danced, we learned, we clowned around a bit, but we graduated. Our class was a composite that was brought together by the time we entered the 7th grade. We had attended several different primary schools: Delta, Sutherland, Oak City, Lindell, Leamington, and Garrison elementary schools. These hometown loyalties never left us entirely. Delta High was our high school. These little towns were our homes. When the time came, we merged with amazing ease, with new friendships forming in the halls of junior high. And as 7th graders, we were learning the ropes of a different teacher for every subject, and trying to arrive at each classroom on time. Some of our classes even required traveling into the somewhat intimidating halls of the senior high. Jack Fowles and Merlin Christensen led our school as principal and vice principal for our entire junior high years. And who could forget Mrs. Jacobson, Mrs. Scow, the lunch ladies, and janitorial staff? Along with the faculty, they all helped us make the transition into a new and exciting time in our lives. Tony Anderson, Doug Fowles, Marcia Barney, Luann Lyman, and Rob Kilpack reigned as our 7th grade class officers. After surviving that harrowing first year in junior high school, we entered 8th grade with confidence and eagerness. Marcia Barney, Shannon Thomas, Chris Clark, Camille Riding, and Jody Stanworth were class officers, while many of our classmates served on the student council. We were experiencing still more opportunities in sports, band and choir, and continuing to make new friendships and binding the old. We entered our final year of junior high as the oldest class at the ripe old age of 14. Richard Waddingham, Camille Riding, and Kevin Damron reigned as student body officers. Evan Maxfield, Elizabeth Moody, and Dixie Price held the positions of our 9th grade officers. Then, finally, senior high was our domain. Even if we were only sophomores, life was fun and exciting. Our town was growing as beryllium mining expanded to refining, and a new plant went up just northeast of Delta. New families moved in. The moving van was a common sight. Jack Fowles was our principal and leader for all of our high school years. Our sophomore class officers were John Nickel, Blair Curtis, and Leanne Jackson. Our high school musical was Fiddler on the Roof. Jim Gemperline, Mark Erickson, and Perry Porter as cast members, to name a few. We danced to our sophomore swing theme of Will You Still Love Me Tomorrow? Dixie Price, Tony Titus, and Jeannie Baker chaired the event. Our guys were playing hard on the JV teams. Some of the good ones even got a spot on the varsity. A golf club was added, and Kim Hansen, Jem Bennett, and Doug Worthen made the team. Jeannie Baker, Marcia Barney, Chris Clark, Shannon Thomas, and Tony Titus were trying their hardest to learn all the Delta High cheers. But we were shocked into reality when we lost our classmate Lois Peterson and her sister Joanne in a tragic accident. We learned, though, one of life's hardest lessons that year. As our junior year began, Richard Waddingham, Doug Fowles, and Joyce Johnson led the way as class officers. Wrestlers Mike Christensen, Spencer Nielsen, Kelly Morris, and Doug Fowles worked hard as the young team did their best. Our varsity basketball team included Richard Waddingham, John Nickel, Kevin Damron, Jody Stanworth, Gary Moody, and Jim Bennett. However, they lost the state championship game to Moab. Camille Riding, Elizabeth Moody, and Mark Erickson were a few of our classmates with leading roles in the musical The King and I. The theme of our junior prom was Pieces of April, sung by Deb and Kim. Best of all, we received our much-awaited class rings. Then summer came, and we celebrated the holidays in the traditional communities. July 4th in Delta, July 24th in Hinckley and Oak City, Lemorado Days in Leamington. And we entered our senior year in the fall of 1973 with excitement and anticipation. We enjoyed the company of one another and were setting and working toward goals. However, early in the year, we were once again thrown a curveball when our elected class president, Doug Fowles, was taken from us as he drove to school. In honor of Doug, we did not refill this position. Kevin Damron and Marilee Memmott led our class for the remainder of that year. We couldn't believe we had lost another classmate when everything else was going so well. Jim Gemperline and Luann Lyman served as student body officers. Jay Cook, Kim Hansen, and Kevin Damron earned the prestigious Preferred Man title. Bev Wood reigned as our homecoming queen, with Tony Titus at Luann Lyman. The Sweetheart Ball royalty gave us Luann Lyman, Camille Riding, and Barbara Roundy. The end of the season came too soon for both the football and the basketball teams. The wrestling team, however, made up for the other losses by taking state. Mike Christensen and Spencer Nielsen were both state champs. Can you pick out any of the players here?
There's someone we know. Who in the hell is that?
The spring sports, baseball, and girls and boys track were enjoyed by the teams and spectators. So good to get out in the sun, too, and start working on our tans. Marcia Barney, Chris Clark, Gloria Grayson, and Shannon Thomas were the senior girls leading the cheering student body. Our senior prom theme was We May Never Pass This Way Again, and was sung by Luann Lyman and Jim Gemperline. Carousel was our musical that year, with seniors in most of the leading roles. Nationally, President Nixon was facing near certain impeachment due to the Watergate scandal. Nearly 1/3 of the American population had been strongly against the Vietnam War. Many young people protested because they were the ones being drafted, while others were against the war because the anti-war movement grew increasingly popular among the counterculture and drug culture in American society and its music. President Nixon resigned on August 9th, 1974, and Vice President Gerald Ford became the 38th President of the United States. President Ford pardoned Nixon of all federal crimes. The tallest building, 110 stories, World Trade Center, opened in New York City. The Universal Product Code was scanned for the first time to sell a package of Wrigley's chewing gum. Ted Bundy victims Laura Amy and Debbie Kent disappeared in Utah. The Dow Jones Index hit 570. Hank Aaron hit his 715th home run, beating Babe Ruth's record. And the NBA New Orleans Jazz began a 28-game losing streak. Sound familiar? People magazine hit the newsstands, and Cher filed for separation from husband Sonny Bono. We watched Blazing Saddles, The Great Gatsby, The Godfather Part 2, Young Frankenstein, or was it Frankenstein, and Towering Inferno at the Sahara Theater and the Desert Drive-In. 1974's top 10 songs bring back a lot of fond memories.
Everybody's doing a brand new dance now. Come on, baby, do the locomotion. I know you get to like it if you give it a chance now. Come on, baby, do the locomotion.
Through the years, we have lost other classmates, too many, but we would like to mention those we know about. Here they are: Jim Bennett, Tony Blanche Harris, Randy Christensen, Doug Fowles, Ben Lyman, Lois Peterson, Dane Rawlinson, Wally Shields, Jim Schertz, and Marianne Taylor.
To guide us with the light of love.
We grew up together and at long last graduated on May 23rd, 1974. Tony Blanche and Jeff Peterson sang our theme song, Hey Tomorrow. Life remained the same for a few more months as summer went on as usual. We grew up a little bit more, viewed the world a little bit differently, and began to go our separate ways. Oftentimes finding success, occasionally finding disappointment, but always moving on and drawing from the strength of our roots. We all played a unique role, just as we do now. All important, all appreciated, maybe now more than ever before. We have learned the importance of individuality, the beauty of variety, the value of respect, and what was involved in forming all those wonderful and singular personalities that make up the Delta High class of 1974. Hey, you guys, and girls too, of course. Especially. This is Dick Norse, in case you haven't already guessed that. I'm honored to have been a part of your class reunion this year. As you could tell, the we that I used put me right in your student body. Actually, the spring of my school years was way back in 1958, across the Utah-Colorado state line in Grand Junction. Yeah, I just celebrated a 55-year reunion last year with what's left of my class and all the great friends I had and still have. I always felt my class was the best ever. No wars, Elvis, the Everly Brothers, Fats Domino, and who then could forget dancing with Peggy Sue and the Platters, My Prayer. And you might not have heard of the Ford Edsel. Remember that one? Yeah, it only lasted about a year. I don't think, if I remember right, there was a 1959 Edsel maybe, but there certainly wasn't a 60. Anyway, it was a pretty great year. I know now you must feel the same about your class and your year, and you should. So many classes and generations have grown up with me and my career in Utah, as prominent as it was in the early and exciting days of television news. I feel like I know you all. Indeed, we have shared many personal stories, mine and yours, as well as the rest of the states, the nations, and the worlds. I have learned one important thing from this experience. We are in this life for one another. I have certainly needed others to help me along the way. You probably have too. If not yet, you will. And you will be called upon to help some others if you haven't already. So full speed ahead, but don't forget what's rest of your life to stop once in a while and smell the flowers and enjoy yourself. Keep in touch with your classmates and friends. The time goes quickly by, and soon you, too, will have a 55-year reunion. Thanks again for making me part of this 40 and your lives. Godspeed, and know of my love and friendship for all of you. Thanks.